Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster here on the Nerd Party. On today's show, we visit the town of Westview to talk all about the sitcom that's had everyone talking. WandaVision, WandaVision. I'm your co-host, Dallas King, and it's a case of to me, to you, with the vision to my, vision. It's Lee Hutchison. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I wish I'd grown in my mustache just for that bit, so I'm gutted. You should have given me some heads up.
Oh, sorry. I mean, it's lockdown, we should have all been, we can't get to the hairdressers and stuff. I thought you would have been growing one anyway. So today, WandaVision is, the latest Disney Plus TV show blending the classic styles of sitcoms with the MCU that we all know and love, in which Wanda Maximoff and Vision lead the ideal suburban life, but one of them begins to suspect that everything is not quite what it seems. So, Lee, and I believe, is this the show that finally got you to take out a Disney Plus subscription, or were you accessing the show via alternative methods, shall we say?
Yeah, a friend was generous and hooked me into his account as his plus one, so felt very blessed and touched by that. I mean, I did have Disney Plus at the beginning of lockdown for a couple months, but I was essentially just watching The Simpsons, which I'd seen hundreds of times, and I was like, I'm just not getting my money's worth out of this. So yeah, thanks to an unnamed source, I've been able to dip into to WandaVision the past 8 weeks, I think.
Cool. My sister got it last year, so I've been on her account. So I guess it's kind of similar. But I think I was actually surprised how good the Mandalorian was after sort of Rise of Skywalker. I wasn't really in the mood for any more Star Wars, but it sort of turned me around. But I think for a lot of people who were on the fence, I think this sort of like January time was probably the moment that they were thinking maybe now's the time to get into the subscription, because you've just had WandaVision and then it feels like it's only a week, 2 weeks off, and then suddenly we're going to get Falcon and the Winter Soldier and there's more Loki and stuff like that coming. So now's the time for Marvel fans to hopefully they're probably just going to be doing an episode a week until cinemas eventually reopen and they finally get round to doing Black Widow, although hopefully there's no continuity errors with the fact that we've had potentially 3 TV shows before we saw a movie, which potentially should have been before any of those TV shows. But actually it's a prequel anyway, so I'm getting ahead of myself. So WandaVision, how familiar were you with the characters of Scarlet Witch and Vision and their relationship outside of the MCU in terms of their comic book history?
I'm not much of a comic book reader myself. I think I've mentioned it before. I like Batman. Batman is my character by and large. I grew up with reading some of the Batman comics, watching the Batman 1960s TV show, yes, the animated show, going in with sort of the Keaton films on VHS, going to see Batman Forever at the cinema, being coming of age sort of with the Dark Knight trilogy. That's my thing. But I do enjoy the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I have my issues with it, but it is event cinema. I'm not one of these people that complains about, there's too much Marvel, there's too much this. It's it's 3 or 4 films out of the year that I will go see, in addition to 140 other films, whether they're black and white, American indie, foreign language. They're just films and stuff. Yeah, there's issues that they take up space, etc., but by and large I have no issue with them. So I consider myself an MCU fan. With someone like Batman, I like Batman, but the crap that comes out with the character is kind of a bit up and down sometimes.
Yes, well, we might get onto that next week, perhaps.
Yeah, so
no spoilers on that one, but I know what you mean. It sounds like, I guess, with the fact that you've got an unlimited card and all that, the Marvel Cinematic Universe actually only makes up a very small percentage of your cinema going, but now it also makes up part of your TV going as well. And I'm keen to know, since you're not really a comic book fan, not a comic book fan, but you're a comic book fan, but you're not a huge reader of the the lore of these two characters. I guess, did you have any expectations going into the TV series about what to expect? Were you reading every morsel that was online about potential storylines, or were you just basically, oh, it's here, it's on, I'm just going to watch it now?
Pretty much, yeah. I've not watched any really of the other Marvel shows. I think I watched a handful of episodes of like the first season of Agent of the Shield. Like I dipped into the first couple episodes, then vanished off, and then when they sort of did a bit of a follow up to, was it the Winter Soldier? I watched some of those episodes. I watched some Daredevil, and I've watched none of the other. What are those groups called?
Yeah, you had the Defenders, you had Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and all that. Well, I mean, for all account purposes, apart from the very minor crossovers of a couple of series of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think even the Marvel Cinematic Universe is basically not even bothering to count those TV shows as canon because they were owned by Netflix and now they've basically got all the rights back. So we'll probably end up seeing them on Disney Plus in a new format, one way or the other. Or, of course, if the multiverse happens. But will it happen? Well, I guess we're going to see because... on this show, I mean, so I guess you weren't really familiar with the House of M storyline in the comic books, where essentially this is what people were probably most expecting with this show, which is essentially that Scarlet Witch and Vision are married, living happily ever after, but basically she ends up going mad when it discovers that their two children are actually not her children. They're parts of a piece of the soul of an evil character called Mephisto, and she basically loses Vision and her children and goes completely mad and basically destroys many of the mutants and the world. So people were expecting that this sort of tragic arc was going to make up for part of the main storyline because, when we start off, Vision and Wanda are living happily in 1950s suburban America, but as most people will know, familiar with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that's not really how we last saw them, because essentially we saw Wanda having to kill Vision in order to destroy the Mind Stone. If that wasn't traumatic enough, Thanos turned up, rewound time, and basically killed Vision all over again by ripping the Mind Stone out of his head. So she was very upset by this and ended up basically almost beating Thanos single-handedly in a battle, even though he had no idea who she was, because this was an earlier version of Thanos. And if that's confusing enough, wait till we get onto WandaVision. Yeah, it was kind of hinted there that Wanda was one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, along with Captain Marvel, which is actually mentioned by other characters in WandaVision, such as Jimmy Boo and Darcy Jennings, which led to the point, how did these people know exactly what happened at the end of Endgame? They all seem very familiar with the details. Did they all sit in a cinema and watch a movie adaptation of Endgame? I mean, they weren't there. It's quite interesting to see how familiar everyone was, even though they had no idea of actually what was going on play by play. Even someone like Iron Man or Spider-Man would not know exactly what happened in the battle if they weren't directly involved. But hey, it's movies for you. So, what did you make of the this sort of sitcom style of the first two episodes, which seemed to ape the 50s style of the Dick Van Dyke Show and then the 60s style of Bewitched? Were you familiar with these sort of sitcoms to begin with, and what did you make of this rather unique departure from the standard Marvel Cinematic playbook?
That's kind of what brought me to the show, really. I mean, I kind of feel obligated to watch this because I've watched all the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, so I'm like, I kind of probably have to watch these TV shows. It's not like the Defender stuff where it's like, oh, it's just off in its own little corner. Like, I feel compelled to watch it. So, I mean, I'm not too fussed about the Falcon and Winter Soldier one coming out on Friday, but with this one, it caught my attention because I was like, this is what they should be doing, is that I go back to a point I made when they started doing the Star Wars stories movies, short-lived, rest in peace, but was like, you have this big movie franchise where you can go a bit wild here and there, but by and large they stick to kind of a template, and that's fair enough. But with this TV show, you can be wild, wacky, you can go out there, you can do different styles, different genres, you can be incredibly creative in a way that you can't with a movie when you're working for probably Disney. And I watched those kind of first few episodes and I was like, this is what I'm here for. Like, you're going to do something different. You're going to mix it up. You're going to bring in different people. And if you maybe kind of push away some of the committed fans or the fan base, that's okay, because you're going to bring in some new people and new champions. And I was really kind of sold on those early first few episodes. I know some people weren't, but for me that was like, yep, new, this is exciting, this is incredibly bold for their first entry into sort of the TV MCU. I was there for it. What about yourself?
Absolutely. This new sort of style for them was immediately drew me in as well. And what did you make of the fact, the choice to actually focus on these two characters? Because Thor's had sort of a few movies, but 3 movies by himself. Captain America's had 3 movies. Iron Man had 3 movies by himself. But to actually focus on these two, I think it's fair to say, so at this point, sort of more minor characters within the cinematic universe getting essentially, well, initially it seemed to be about a 9-hour sort of TV show. Of course, with all the end credits on Disney Plus, it turned out to be a lot less than that. But to focus so much attention on these two sort of more minor characters, because I mean, obviously as Scots, we've got perhaps maybe a more affectionate glow for these two characters, since Edinburgh was the location of their blossoming romance over a deep fried kebab. We were there to watch some of the filming and stuff like that. So what do you think of the choice to focus on Wanda and Vision?
I liked it. I mean, in terms of like actors, you can't get two better than this for a TV show. So I would have naturally been inclined to watch them anyway. But the problem that I had, and I suppose it kind of verges into a little bit of potential spoilers, was that I liked that they didn't. I liked the ending that they got in the movie TV show. I mean, I suppose it is a glorified TV show in a way, but like I really like that brutal, cold, heartbreaking ending that they got in the movies. Like I was all there for that, because it was something that was like, it didn't sort of need to be kind of given a sort of reprieve. Like, and it for me, it summed up how much of a threat Thanos was, that this was a character that we were all starting to like, and he basically dispatched of one of those kind of key Avenger characters in a really cold and brutal way, and like that was enough for me. Like I didn't need any more beyond that. So at the same time as this was going on, I was always fighting with the idea of like, please don't bring him back to life, don't undo the good ending.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the biggest criticisms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and comic book movies in general, is that no one ever really sort of stays dead. It looked like at the beginning of Infinite War they'd killed off Loki, but then it turns out there's now an alternative version of Loki from another timeline who's now time hopping, just in order to give him a TV show. And I mean, for a long time it looked like, yes, that Vision was completely dead because he was killed before the snap, so therefore he wasn't able to be brought back. And a lot of the sort of mystery, I guess, around WandaVision was, how is Vision back? Has she managed to resurrect his body? Is it the same Vision and stuff? And I think we're okay to talk about spoilers now, because it has been a week and a half since the finale ended, and you were lucky if you could go about 5 minutes after the show had aired on Twitter without getting massive spoilers on it. It seemed some people almost were basically skipping to the end to find out, and then posting their spoilers just to try and ruin it for everyone else, which was a bit harsh. But I think we're safe on the spoiler front. And so it turns out that it's certainly implied in the first half of the show that Wanda has taken Vision's body away from SWORD, which is essentially another Shield-esque organization, which is looking after sort of superhero elements in the world. And she's gone to Westview and basically has created a hex, a sort of magical realm within this, basically brainwashing all the inhabitants of the small New Jersey town. And she's resurrected the Vision in order to live happily ever after, rather than be consumed by her grief. She's basically putting on a brave face and basically gone into her own sort of had a mental break and gone into her own world to do this. As we'll find out in a couple of episodes later on in the timeline, that's maybe not exactly the case, but it was certainly an interesting perspective at that point, in the fact that the show was essentially an examination of grief, the different sitcoms that she chooses, it turns out, were actually sitcoms that she watched with her family in Sokovia on illegal bootleg DVDs, it seemed, including the likes of sort of Malcolm in the Middle and even sort of Modern Family and stuff like this. I've only just started watching Modern Family, so I was able to sort of get some of those references. But I mean, they've referenced quite a few sitcoms along the way, including like The Office and stuff like that, with the sort of direct-to-camera looks that were so popular in the sort of 2000s and 2010s. But I think Elizabeth Olsen is a fantastic actress. Anyway, at this point probably have to recommend great films such as Liberal Arts and of course Ingrid Goes West. And I think this series, more than any other, has proved what probably the secret weapon of the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been Paul Bettany as Vision, because he can deliver some lines which could be incredibly cheesy, but he manages to just deliver them with a huge amount of pathos and stuff like that. What was it? What is grief if not love persevering and stuff like this? And I think he got one of the all-time best sort of lines when he was arguing with Ultron at the end of Age of Ultron, and he says, "You're so naive," and he was just like, "Well, I was born yesterday." And I think he's just a great presence in this, and it was great to see him do more within the. He started off as just a voice, then he became a body, and then he became a memory, as Vision put it himself, and stuff like that. And so I think we'll go through some of the main points that sort of got people talking, the water cooler moments, because I guess, what did you make of the fact that it was a weekly TV show, and the fact that you couldn't binge it all? You basically were waiting week on week. Did you prefer the return to that sort of water cooler style of television programming, where essentially the water cooler was Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, I'm someone that's about to crash into my mid-30s in a couple of weeks. Like, everyone kind of talks about the whole Netflix thing, about like it completely changed, dumping everything at once. For me and you and probably a lot of people that kind of listen to these things, like that's kind of the norm. That's what we've been raised on. I mean, I even still think of like up until even like 15 years ago, maybe even a bit less, we were waiting months for things to come from America. We're used to watching things with the ad breaks. We're used to maybe sort of things for a few weeks and then breaks. Like, this is all like, having something kind of simultaneously, but once a week. That isn't the norm as far as I'm concerned. It's becoming the norm. So yeah, like I was completely fine with it, and that's my personal preference as well, because I think of the stuff where I look at my Netflix, what I've been watching list sometimes, and how many Netflix shows are in there. Not many. It's often things that I may be rewatching or movies here and there. Like, I struggle to get on top of these Netflix shows. Like, by the time it started, I've maybe watched a couple of episodes, I've fallen behind. I'm on top of it. With something like WandaVision, I'm like, yeah, I can watch an episode on a Friday morning while I'm kind of getting ready for work, or I'll watch something at lunchtime, or I forgot to watch that the other day, I'll watch that. Like, that is my personal preference, and I think it makes for more engaging content to watch and stuff. So yeah, like, it's totally the norm, and I would prefer that to the Netflix model personally. What about yourself?
I enjoyed having something to look forward to each week. I mean, I would normally sort of get up. I basically had to rearrange my schedule on a Friday morning. I would basically sort of, rather than starting work at sort of like 8:30 as I normally would, I would basically start at 9 and make sure I was up and ready to press play at 8, because I think it was probably episode 3. It's like I went on Twitter and it was like people were already talking. I was like, "Oh right, okay, this is clearly a case. I'm going to have to basically not go on Twitter until I've watched it. Otherwise, it will be spoiled." Even I saw people complaining about the fact that even though they tried to mute every single possible permutation of WandaVision, Wanda or Vision, they still managed to get spoilers on their timeline. So it was essential that I basically started my day with WandaVision. But hey, it was a great start to the day. But I think the issue that a lot of people had with the show, and this is just probably a certain group of fans, is it gave them a lot of time to theorize and speculate on everything that was happening within the TV show, possibly to the detriment of their enjoyment of the TV show, because there were some wild theories going out there, and basically not many of them actually came true in the end. And this is where we're going to sort of dive full into spoilers. So if you have not seen all of WandaVision yet, press pause, go watch all the episodes, and then come back. Are you back? Great. Basically, the main one that people were possibly potentially upset about or felt cheated by, but for me, I thought it was just a glorious act of trolling by a Mr. Paul Bettany. He was sort of basically just after the series started, he talked about the fact that there was a cameo appearance or a role that had not been previously announced that he had enjoyed shooting. It's someone he hadn't worked with before, and he had such a great time. He thought their chemistry was fantastic, and he was really excited for people to see this. It was going to be in the final sort of couple of episodes, and this led to people speculating wildly about who it could potentially be. Obviously, at this point, Scarlet Witch had been, well, no, she wasn't Scarlet Witch at that time. Wanda Elizabeth Olsen had been cast in Strange 2, the Multiverse of Madness, so there was all these rumours going around about the multiverse, and of course, since Disney had bought Fox, would the X-Men be coming into the Marvel Cinematic Universe? So people were speculating, could it be Ian McKellen's Magneto? Then people pointed out that Paul Bettany and Ian McKellen had worked together on Da Vinci Code, so it probably couldn't be him, but maybe it was Michael Fassbender's Magneto, maybe it was Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier turning up at the end. Then, of course, Elizabeth Olsen doubled down on that, saying that the cameo at the end was a Luke Skywalker-esque Mandalorian-style cameo that people were going to go crazy for. Did you have any speculation as to who it was going to be?
No, not really. I didn't even know. Like, I mean, I tend not to read articles or anything about kind of comic books, etc. Before things air, like after the fact, yeah, I sometimes dive into the odd article, and then there's been some really good ones in the past few weeks. But I was only aware that this was even a thing from listening to Nerd Party News, and Mike kind of theorized, oh, maybe it could be Magneto, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, that could be pretty cool. I didn't maybe expect it to happen, but I thought, oh, that's potentially interesting. But I think ultimately with these TV shows, I'm not that emotionally invested. Like, if something happens, great. If it doesn't, I'm like, okay, fair enough. Like, I don't get angry about these things. Like, there's plenty more for me to be angry about than a lack of Magneto turning up. And while I have strong issues with the person that made the cameo at the end, it's more just sort of like the idea around it, not not who it was.
Yeah, because have you caught up on the Mandalorian yet?
No, I've only ever watched the first 3 episodes.
Oh, okay. No, well, then it's probably already spoiled for you. But I mean, I did have great joy in watching the reaction videos to people who, after complaining for so long that why do they always bring Star Wars back to the Skywalkers, blah blah blah, then losing their minds when Luke Skywalker turns up at the end of the Mandalorian season 2. It's the point where it's like, oh, it's an X-wing. Wait, it's one X-wing, and then it's like, oh my god. But yeah, no, I mean, it's like, oh, at the same point you're going, oh, it's Skywalker again. But then also it's still kind of cool until you realize the point that basically Luke Skywalker takes Baby Yoda away to essentially be killed by Adam Driver in about 15 years. So, but for WandaVision, it turned out that the actor that Paul Bettany was really looking forward to working with was himself as a white Vision. It turns out that Wanda did not steal Vision's body, and that S.W.O.R.D. were looking to bring the Vision back online as a weapon, and essentially we got a scene where Vision fought Vision and talked about the ship of Theseus, where basically if a ship is replaced plank by plank, is it still the same ship? Which I don't know if anyone here is a fan of Only Fools and Horses, but there was a wonderful sketch on it where Trigger, a character on the show who was a janitor, was awarded a special commendation for basically using the same broom for 20 years. And he then talked about how he'd maintained his broom by having about 7 different handles and 20 different heads across those 20 years. So is it the same broom? And as Helen O'Hara replied to my tweet, it's also very similar to the Sugar Babes in the fact that I think when the Sugar Babes finally ended, they didn't have any members of the original lineup. So were they still the Sugar Babes? So yeah, was Vision still the real Vision if he was just built from a memory of Vision? And was the new Vision also the real Vision if he was built from the body of the Vision but didn't have the memories? Do you want to weigh in on the Sugar Theseus debate?
I think, not to bring it back to it, but that was recently addressed on Star Trek Picard, where a little molecule from Data survived his destruction, and that was sort of implanted in and sort of created a daughter, essentially. So, yeah, it's one of these things, like, when you're a kind of sci-fi genre fan, like, things like that happen, and you go, like, okay, yeah, fair enough. Like, you kind of condition yourself not to think about it too much and kind of go with the flow of these things. Like, you're going, yeah, of course there's like a white Vision. Like, I just was more annoyed, like, I didn't need to see that. Like, it was all hyped up there was going to be this like big battle or whatever between the two and them having, you know, a discussion. I was like, but it wasn't that engaging. Like, I was quite happy to see them having a chit chat in this library room, but it just wasn't like, it was like, oh, what I was disappointed about really was, like, it started with such unique promise about sort of like doing something different, innovative for the Marvel universe, and then it was like, oh yeah, we've now got 2 Visions, we've got beams in the sky, we've got
yes, the Marvel third act beam into the sky. Yes, no, it did sort of fall back into the usual MCU tropes towards the end. But, I mean, there was some delightful stuff before that point. I mean, I think my least favourite episode was the second last episode, the previously on episode, where Wanda was sort of taken back through various moments of her pain and grief. But, you know, they'd kind of already been mentioned in various formats and either in the movies and stuff, so I'm not sure if we needed to see all that again to see how she became who she was, because it had kind of already been implied. But there were a couple of other sort of big reveals within the show. I know one that you were not expecting because you hadn't heard of the casting announcement was the fake Pietro or Fietro, the fake Quicksilver turning up, played by Evan Peters, who of course plays Quicksilver in X-Men, Days of Future Past, etc. So he is in the X-Men universe as Quicksilver because due to various rights issues, the characters of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were owned by both at the same time, but MCU could not refer to them as mutants. And so you were pleasantly surprised when you saw Evan Peters turn up at the door?
Oh yeah, like I like the MCU, but it rarely ever surprises me, and okay, fair enough. But I remembered sort of on that day I'd fallen behind. I think I watched the first 2 episodes, and then I was like, right, I'll just catch up with it when it all finishes. What was that, episode 5? Was it?
It would have been the end of episode 4 into 5.
Yeah, so I decided, I was like, oh, right, oh, gosh. I think I logged into Twitter and people went, oh my God, what a surprise that was. And I was like, I didn't see what it was going to be. And I was like, right, I'll get caught up. So I blitzed the kind of couple episodes and then I watched that episode. And then I got to the end, I was like, oh, I did not expect that. I mean, I never saw the casting. I mean, it might say something about my heavy muting policy on social media. But I was like, oh, I didn't expect that. You
clearly have a very good muting policy if you didn't get that spoiled for you.
And I was like, oh my God, like, I didn't see that coming. Like, the idea that this, like, how they drop in sort of the X-Men, and I know there's a whole debate about that since, but I was like, oh, I didn't see that coming. They surprised me. Well done them. And I was happy to give them kudos.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the most delightful things about the sort of episode, that was the other major sort of trolling point of WandaVision. And I mean, they clearly knew that casting Evan Peters was going to get people expecting that the X-Men were fine, that he's come over from the Fox's X-Men universe, and, you know, this is going to create all the sort of things, you know, because there's all this talk at the moment about the new Spider-Man movie that apparently has going to have all the different villains from the Tobey Maguire ones and the Andrew Garfield ones, and even Tobey and Andrew might turn up as various other incarnations of Spider-Man. I mean, technically, they've already done it better in terms of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but hey, Sony and Marvel clearly want a slice of that action, so, go on them. But I mean, I thought it was a great reveal, and there was even an even better reference in the following episode, one of my favorite episodes, the Halloween one, where they managed to find a way for Wanda and Vision to have their original sort of comic book costumes on as Halloween costumes. And there was the great moment where she sort of references, she just goes, kick ass, with like a question mark. And of course, the fact that Aaron Taylor Johnson, who played the MCU Quicksilver, and Evan Peters, who played the Fox Quicksilver, were both in a film called Kick-Ass. So, I mean, that was just great. That made me Google that one there. But outside of Westview and the Hex, there was a sort of another ongoing storyline with Monica Rambeau, a grown-up Monica Rambeau, the daughter of Maria Rambeau, who appeared in the Captain Marvel movie a couple of years ago, where she comes back following the snap and is one of the protagonists trying to get into the Hex along with Jimmy Woo, who has finally learned his card magic from Ant-Man and the Wasp. He was looking for a missing person, a witness who's gone missing, which for some reason they never actually resolved in the TV show. I'm guessing they will at some point. And the return of Kat Dennings' Darcy, and I think the people seem to like their chemistry so much that someone has pitched an X-Files style TV show for Marvel, where it's just Jimmy and Darcy sort of going around looking at superhero style shenanigans going on. Would you watch that show?
No.
Nope.
I mean,
I take it you weren't a fan of what happened outside the Hex then.
No, that's why I like the first. I think there seems to be a divide between a lot of people where they're they didn't like the start of it, but they liked it as it became a more Marvel show as it kind of went along. Whereas I was checking out week on week as it became more of a traditional kind of Marvel show. I was really into what's going on in this little TV universe that they're making, and her dealing with her grief, which I thought was really interesting. But I was I don't care who the sword people are, what they're doing. And it was just the more episodes would focus on that and them trying to get into this town and just them faffing about in computers. I was this is really boring. Just I didn't need it. The show can survive without that structure. It wasn't for me at all. Did you like it more than me, perhaps?
I mean, I totally get your criticism, and for me, yeah, I've sort of really enjoyed it being sort of a self-contained within each episode, just within the Hex and within this sort of sitcom world. If it had just been that, and maybe only sort of opened up towards maybe sort of the final 2 episodes as to what was really going on, I think that potentially could have made for a strong show. But I mean, I still enjoyed it. I mean, I thought Monica Rambeau was a good character, and she got her own sort of superhero origin story, gaining powers and making it through the Hex for a third time and doing your traditional superhero landing on sort of one knee and one arm and stuff like that. So interested to see where she's going to end up. Clearly, the Skrulls are back. If anyone saw one of the post-credits things, so we're looking at things ramping up for Secret Invasion storyline, which. News just breaking today, Kingsley Belvedere, who was, I believe he's all the rage now in Bridgerton. I have not seen Bridgerton, but apparently he's all the rage in that, and he played Malcolm X in One Night in Miami. He has signed up as the main villain in Secret Invasion, so I guess we're going to see what happens with that. But yeah, no, I mean, I find them they have good chemistry together, but yeah, I think anytime it sort of pulled focus away from Westview and the Hex, I think it was a slight detriment to the show. Like you say, they had this really strong structure in the first 2 episodes, and then it started to maybe lose its way. But one thing that I think that everyone was complimentary about, and why wouldn't they be, was the introduction to the MCU of the one, the only, the incredible Catherine Hahn. For me, one of the funniest women on the planet, and always a delight whenever she's on screen. Were you a fan of her before the start of this show?
Yeah, I was, and yeah, I was really glad to see her kind of come good in a show like this. Like, it's been interesting. Like, you if you like Catherine Hahn, you're like, oh yeah, she's like this really good actress, but like it's never been a big thing really. But now it seems like sort of in the past few weeks since her big reveal and her wink and her little song, which I must add, the song is an absolute banger. It just seems like the memes are still going. There seems even Netflix are promoting movies that they never even paid bloody attention to months years ago. So it's like it's great to see kind of people jumping on board and realizing what a great talent she is, and hopefully they'll use it as an excuse to dive into her sort of previous filmography.
Absolutely. I think the first thing I ever saw was probably something like Anchorman, but she's incredible in Step Brothers. But for a more dramatic role, I really sort of recommend people try Private Life on Netflix. I think she's fantastic in that as well. But of course, she starts off the show as Agnes, the nosy neighbor next door, and I think one of her skills is she was probably more than anyone else in the show able to adapt to that sort of TV style of the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, etc. She was able to fit into the whatever sort of the format of the week called for, and I thought she was fantastic. But there were always rumors going around that the character of Agnes was going to be revealed at one point to be that of Agatha Harkness, a fellow sort of witch, and indeed it did turn out to be that she was, and she was indeed, I guess, the main antagonist of the series, as like you say, the song revealed at the end of episode, I think it was 7. It was Agatha all along, and indeed credit to the Lopez's, the sort of songwriters behind those pesky songs from the Frozen movies, but they were able to do all the different WandaVision jingles at the start of the episodes, and then also Agatha All Along, which indeed apparently went to number 1 in the iTunes chart, and has even sort of had sort of hip hop remixes and all that. And it was indeed Catherine Hahn on it, and I did like the way that it was like. She's been revealed as the main villain. It's like, oh, but it's Catherine Hahn. How are people going to hate her? And then they even sort of throw in a line about how she killed the dog as well in order to try and make people hate her. But, I think it was just impossible. But, she gets this reveal in possibly one of the best something is going on in the basement scenes since probably David Fincher's Zodiac. I thought it was a wonderful scene, that one. I mean, what did you make of her as the antagonist when it was revealed that she is a witch capable of basically sucking on the witchy energy of other witches, and she's just trying to get a hold of that chaos magic, and she is indeed the one to finally give Wanda Maximoff the moniker of Scarlet Witch, since they kind of had a plot point at the beginning of the series about the fact that she didn't have a superhero name yet.
The big shock for me of the whole series wasn't like the reveal about the nosy neighbor. It was like, oh, she wasn't called Scarlet Witch all along. Oh, my bad. Like, I just naturally assumed that was always the case and stuff. If anyone asked you to play, oh, she plays Scarlet Witch. Like, I thought that was a given. So that was a huge revelation for me. But I kind of lost. I love when they do the reveal. I mean, I kind of expected something. But when they sort of have that song, you're like, oh, wow, what? This is good. And then it's like, oh, okay, it's just sort of people kind of spouting off against each other and, bright colored hands and CGI. It was like, it was just I was like, just keep it small, keep it intimate. Like, it would have just felt all the better for that. It was just like, it felt like two things hammered together, like this unique TV world that they had generated, then thrown in with like the visuals and twists of like a huge, $1 billion blockbuster. And I just don't think those two meshed well together. And I thought like it kind of robbed Catherine Hahn of sort of like some urgency and intimacy between that sort of argument.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, the Agatha All Along song was essentially the final sort of sitcom moment. I mean, yeah, that was at the end of episode 7, and then yeah, that was it was just the last 2 episodes were basically your standard Marvel Cinematic Universe formatting with the big battles and the CGI and the giant beams of light going into the skies and the referencing to all the other movies and stuff like that. So, I think, yeah, she was maybe given slightly less to do in the final episodes, apart from sort of float around in the sky and sort of shoot lightning bolts and stuff like that. I think she was a total delight in the episodes where she was able to be a bit more manipulative and mastermindy. I mean, it's a credit to her performance that she actually completely threw me off. Where everyone is basically under sort of mind control, and Vision releases that for a minute in the Halloween episode. And her performance there is basically as just another resident who is scared of what's going on. Is so good that I thought, well, she can't be the villain. It must be somebody else. It must be Mephisto or Nightmare or someone like that. So, I guess they were wrong. And then, of course, it turns out that even in the song, she's sort of winking at the camera at that point, going, haha, look what I'm doing. So I think, she's great. But, I mean, she's still, of course, around at the end, although she is now permanently trapped in Westview now that the Scarlet Witch has fulfilled the prophecy of destroying the world, although technically she destroyed her world within Westview. Some have criticised the show for maybe letting her get off scot-free, and the fact that she held hundreds of people mentally hostage for several weeks. But some people argue with the fact that basically she had to give up her own family in order to do that. I mean, what did you make of her sort of the final moments in Westview, where once again she has to say goodbye to Vision, but also this time also her two children?
I was kind of glad that it wasn't like they had like, oh, the White Vision or sort of carries. They kind of tried to have their cake and eat it. I just sort of felt like, I was like, again, it just felt redundant. I was like, they had a really good ending, and I as much as I want to think of this as like an epilogue to that, it was like it just had the undercurrent of like, this was unnecessary. I just wish that the whole Vision all along was sort of like a figment or something like that she's using her powers. Like, I don't need him in sort of like practical, physical form. I don't need that. And so it's just like when she says the goodbye, I was sitting there more relief of like, well, kind of thank God they've not brought him back again and stuff like that. At least, he's as dead as he can be in sort of these things. And I was like, with the kids, I was like, okay, that was quite sweet and stuff like that. I thought that was a good moment. But yeah, it was just, but the problem I had with that was like, the whole final episode is like, it's pretty much bish bash bosh. And then it's like, you have this little sentimental moment towards the end. And it's like, that's the stuff that I want, that you've crammed into a couple minutes. Like, the rest of the stuff you've given me plenty of already. You give me in the movies, you'll give me again soon when cinemas open. I don't need this. You've already catered to me. I want the drama and the intimacy, and I felt that it was very unfair that it was crammed into just such a short, quick ending.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's, I guess, the beauty of traditional sort of comic book storytelling, is that you can tell these stories over multiple issues over several sort of weeks and months, and you can have multi-page panel battles and stuff like that, but you can also potentially devote an entire 36-page comic to essentially what you're talking about, is Wanda saying goodbye to her family, and really sort of delve into and that's, I guess, what was good about the earlier episodes, is that it was focused on character development and her exploration of grief, and you could see the effect it had on her when she was kind of temporarily jolted out of her world, and she saw Vision's sort of dead face, and being confronted about the truth that she's desperately trying to avoid and stuff like that. And I think that's one of the strengths of Elizabeth Olsen's performance. I mean, I can see her probably getting nominated for an Emmy or something like that for a role in the show, because she had such a wide range of things to have to do in this show. But yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, like you said, they probably could have in the final episode, even though it was the longest episode of the series, cut down on the usual Marvel stuff of beams in the sky and flying around and shooting stuff at each other, and focus more on that. But at the end, of course, it is a Marvel thing, so we get not one but two end credit stings, with the first one being about the Skrulls, and then the second one being that she is, as hinted by Catherine Hahn, she is equally as powerful, if not more powerful, than the Sorcerer Supreme, which is, of course, Doctor Strange at the moment. And she is doing that whole sort of, going about her normal business, having a cup of tea on a porch in a cabin in the woods, but she is also then reading Darkhold, the mysterious book of essentially the Necronomicon, probably the Book of the Dead, and she is sort of learning everything to do about that. But then she gets basically a cry for help from her imaginary children who clearly exist in some other realm or multiverse. And I guess that's what teases us up for Doctor Strange #2, which is now just finished filming, directed by Sam Raimi, and as confirmed on Twitter, will feature the traditional Bruce Campbell cameo. So thumbs up for that. But I mean, where do you see the Scarlet Witch, fitting into a Doctor Strange sequel?
I don't really know. I'm looking forward to more Elizabeth Olsen is always good in my opinion. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Like the one thing that you could say about sort of Doctor Strange was like the characters by and large weren't the most memorable in the world. Like what was his assistant called? He was good, and Cumberbatch
Wong,
was fine.
Played by
Wong?
Benedict Wong.
Yeah,
Inspired
Wong
casting.
was good. Yeah, I liked him. Tilda Swinton was fine, but she's obviously gone. So yeah,
I think the main. Doctor Strange definitely wasted Rachel McAdams, who has gone on from strength to strength in the last couple of years with the likes of Game Night. So apparently she will be given more to do. So hopefully that is the case in the sequel.
Yeah, and it'll help as well. No one's sitting there going at the moment. Like, I'm looking forward to a new Sam Raimi film, whether that's a Marvel thing. Like, that's what I'm excited for. So I'm looking forward to that. And the multiverse is an interesting concept. So yeah, like, these things interest me and appeal to me. But, like, you throw Elizabeth Olsen in there, and I'm like, yeah, I'm excited. But I don't ever hear anyone going, can't wait for the new Doctor Strange movie. When's the new Doctor Strange movie? Is the Doctor Strange movie going to be pushed back or brought forward? No one really cares. But I'm interested in, like, I don't think they do really. Like, that's my feeling. I'm not seeing that buzz online, but that again could be my heavy muting policy.
Yeah, I mean, given the House of M storyline, and people thought that this series was potentially setting up for Elizabeth Olsen to become the big bad of Doctor Strange 2. Are you disappointed that she didn't go sort of full on crazy, or was it good that they didn't have a woman who is affected by grief going crazy? Or would you have been excited to see her as the main villain of Doctor Strange 2?
I'd never considered that. I would have been interested in that. But you do make a really good point. Would that have been appropriate? Like we've essentially, by and large, had that for these 8-9 episodes where, like, you touched on it. She's like held this town against her. This town against their will. Like, these people are clearly being traumatized when they kind of snap out of it. Like, she is the villain, and we've kind of been rooting for the villain most of the show and stuff. So I think they've had that, but I think, as you say, it's probably just completely gone over people's heads. Yeah,
no, it's all that sort of like unreliable narrative thing, where if the show is presented from her point of view, and she's traditionally a hero, so of course, she'd be seen as a hero. But then, yeah, if you told the story from, say, one of the residents of Westview's point of view, then basically it would be some sort of strange sort of horror movie that you would have been watching for 9 episodes of someone completely trapped in their own body, unable to do anything that they wanted, and that's quite terrifying. So it'd be interesting to see if she snaps and goes off the deep end in Doctor Strange 2. But overall, I think, yeah, WandaVision showcased a different side of Marvel. As we've discussed, it kind of, strayed perhaps a bit too far back into familiar territory for the last couple of episodes. We'll be interested to see where Falcon and the Winter Soldier goes. I mean, it certainly looks from the trailers to be your more traditional Marvel sort of fare, as Bucky and Sam team up. Essentially, now it's on Disney Plus. Essentially, they're finding Zemo with Daniel Kroll. So, but I think for next week we're gonna change from Marvel to DC, because it's here, whether we like it or not. The Snyder Cut is here. It was released on Friday, and so Lee and I will both be spending 4+ hours being reacquainted with Zack Snyder's vision of Justice League, and we'll bring you our thoughts next week. Lee, tell me how much are you looking forward to this?
I was saying to you off air that it drops on Sky Movies, which I have at 7 a.m. on on Thursday, and I have to stay in my house between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. for the arrival of some curtains from IKEA. So I have to stay indoors. So I'm debating, do I do what Zack Snyder suggested in a really good interview with the New York Times and do a double feature of that and First Cow? I might have the time. Let's see what happens. So I'll probably watch it all on Thursday. It's gonna have to happen.
I look forward to your cinematic comparisons to From Justice League to First Cow next week. But in the meantime, we'll see you all then. Cheers. Bye bye.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.